Welcome, fans, to another edition of the Great North Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and we're very pleased tonight to welcome a man who is an original in terms of Eastern Championship Wrestling and Extreme Championship Wrestling. The man known at one time as the sexiest man alive, as Joey Styles would say, self-proclaimed, which we'll get into that whole thing. But very pleased to welcome Jason Knight. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Actually, that was Paul Heyman's idea, and a lot of people get it wrong, and you did. No, but in any case, it's on Earth.
Sexiest man on Earth?
Yeah, oh yeah. That was, and Paul Heyman would actually reiterate that every time. No, it's on Earth. I said, okay, Paul.
that works. I stand corrected. And one of the things the fans want me to ask you about is your relationship with Paul Heyman. But a lot of the viewers of the channel are interested in the backstory of workers. And I usually start off by saying, asking you, were you a fan of pro wrestling as a youngster? And if so, what territories or workers in particular influenced you?
Well, actually, that's interesting because the only time, or should I say, the first time that I understood anything about territories was when my mother and I moved to the United States. Well, actually, she moved in '75, and then I moved here in '77. But during the late '60s, we lived with my dad in London, England, and he was a big fan of wrestling, and wrestling was on quite a bit, probably a couple of times a week. And him and I would watch it. And it was a different system, the rounds system, and it was well, how British wrestling is, very, very athletic, and it was very entertaining as well. So in the late '60s is when I first started watching wrestling, and I, I would like to do that. Of course, as a kid, it's 6-7 years old. I had a sort of a fantasy of becoming a wrestler, and then in 1977, when I moved to the United States, and I lived in New York City, there was a Worldwide Wrestling Federation television show once a week on Channel 9. And that is when I found out about wrestling in the United States. And it's bigger than life. It's a different system than the British, and the characters are, well, not too many characters back then, because it was pretty cut and dry. Wrestlers were wrestlers, and they were just really big men, and there were quite a few that were very athletic. Very physically fit, and I kind of wanted to be that way. Also enjoyed bodybuilding. Wanted to, so it kind of combined professional wrestling, bodybuilding, and all that. It combined, and so I finally decided I wanted to do it, and found places where I could train at a very early age, and then. Later on, in the '80s had some great trainers, such as Johnny Rods and Bobby Bold Eagle. And that made a huge difference for me. And then moved right on, and rest sort of everything fell into its place.
So, growing up, and as you describe your early exposure to wrestling, what did you have a particular worker or characters that spoke to you that you modeled yourself after down the road, or was it just the sport in general?
Back then, like I said, wrestlers that were very popular and on top were already mature men. You know, unlike today, you know, it's a younger generation, and I think a lot of the younger generation are used more than should I say, fully matured men. In other words, you know, guys in their 20s and early 30s, and maybe even a little bit older. But you know, that's more popular right now. But back then, it was guys like Ken Patera, Bob Eklund, Peter Maivia, of course, Bruno, uh, Superstar Graham, Strongbow, Maria, all those guys. Zabisco. I think that, or well, should I say, I know that back then I respected each and every one of them. You know, and obviously, you know, that was the company up north, and then down south, of course, you know, you had the different territories, you know, the NWA, and for me, Florida was king.
Mhm.
And Eddie Graham ran it, and of course, you know, Dusty as well, and everyone else that followed. But, you know, that incredible talent, Ken Sullivan, Bob Roop, Eddie Graham, his son Mike, Steve Kern, and then of course the Japanese that were extremely instrumental down south, Matsuda and Peck Song and well, Korean Peck Song, and guys like uh, Sato Saito, with Masa Hattori, just incredible talent down in Florida. I think that was my favorite wrestling to watch, and it still is today. Thank God for YouTube and you know
Mhm.
wrestling with Gordon Soley and like I said, Bob Roop, Carl Cogs, those guys. I mean, they were just pure and so to the point where you believed in professional wrestling. And unfortunately, I have to say, and I'm not trying to be mean or insult anyone, but kind of like unlike today, because you know these days we just don't believe in it anymore. You know, everybody knows everything. And that's just how it is.
Um, in terms of your training process, and sorry, your mic's dropping a little bit, so if you could speak up, that would be great. In terms of your training process,
Yeah.
can you describe what that entailed? And you mentioned the legendary Johnny Rods as one of them. What was your experience like breaking into the business at that stage?
Well, very physical, and you would you would work on those basics an awful lot. You know, I mean, until you can do them in your sleep, and then everything else would follow. And you know, just like any student that is eager to learn, uh, I was a bit impatient, you know, and I wanted, of course, you want everything yesterday, but it doesn't happen that way. And it's, I can tell you, it's extremely frustrating because things that look so easy on TV are really not easy at all to master and perfect. And it takes a lot of hard work, and of course, it's very physical. But it goes way beyond just bumping, taking hellacious bumps and chopping somebody hard, or you know, shooting on someone, or you know, being a grappler or modern day hooker or shooter, you know, what have you. As far as you know, training the right way to be safe for yourself and keep other people safe as well. Uh, that is a process that can be extremely frustrating. And it, the reason is because it's very serious and very important because we don't want to be wrecking balls out there. You know, we want to enjoy longevity in this business. And I think, you know, you know, that's extremely important. So, as far as, of course, being physically fit and strong and having a look, depending on whatever your look might be. That's very important. But you know that basic professional wrestling training, you know, just the basics. that was probably the most frustrating part. But once you understand and once you master it, you realize that it was extremely necessary, because it will only get you to the point of being ready to work and being ready to perform, and keeping it safe, because once you start, there's no turning back. If you're not ready, that's nobody's fault but your own. And what I'm trying to say by that is that you have a lot of, like, we had very few wrestling schools back then, very few, because back then it was controlled by the state athletic commission, and the commission wanted to be sure that and be assured that professional wrestlers only were performing at the time. Nowadays, I mean, you have anyone with a ring, a makeshift ring, or a professional ring, can open up a wrestling school and teach people how to become a professional wrestler. And that's why, you see there's a lot of garbage out there, unfortunately. There's a lot of great young talent, yes. But there's also a lot of garbage.
So I think a lot of the fans first became aware of your involvement in the business through Eastern Championship Wrestling. Can you walk us through how you ended up being booked there, and your notable experiences in that company before? We'll talk about ECW, of course, but before that period of time.
Yeah, well, I I knew Paul Heyman from years back, and pretty much a WCW, because we're both New York guys. And, we traveled together a bit, and he was always very kind to ask me to ride with him, and we do that, and we just kind of talk business and joke around and do what we do. So he always remembered me, and he always had my, well, at the time, it was a telephone number. There were no cell phones and no social media. So, he had my home phone, and called me sometime in early '93. And unfortunately, it was right after I had my second lower back surgery. That was like June or July '93. And he was telling me he's starting up, along with Todd Gordon, this company, Eastern Championship Wrestling, that I've heard a little bit about it. Because back then, I think video cassettes were popular. Yes, yeah, video cassettes. And of course, there were also wrestling magazines. And, I never read the dirt sheets or anything like that. That never interested me. Never did back then, and they don't interest me now. But in any case, I heard something about Eastern Championship Wrestling, and I heard, something about Todd Gordon, and I knew that you had they had great local talent, and also talent that they were bringing in from different promotions, like Eddie Gilbert's from the South, and they would bring in Matsunaga from Japan, and of course Doug Gilbert, Don Morocco, Jimmy Snuka, all the great guys. So he got in touch with me and asked me if I would like to do his first show, which was Ultra Clash. And I told him that I was pretty much hurting, and he said, "Well, it's not going to be, because of my back surgery." He said, "Well, just meet me, and we'll talk about it." He convinced me to do the show. So I had my second surgery. Like I said, it was either June or July. I remember it being very hot, so it was either June or July '93, and all suddenly in was it September or October? Yeah, I think it was October. I'm supposed to wrestle on the show, so I agreed to do it, and I had to kind of try to get better in a hurry, and I wasn't feeling too good because I was in a lot of pain. But it was Ian Rodman and I in the first match we wrestled.
Public Enemy, right?
Public Enemy, they're both gone, unfortunately. Dear, dear friends.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they kept it safe, and Ian took pretty much all of the bumps during the match. I mean, they really, they worked him over, and of course, he was ready to do anything because I was really, I was feeling it. I was afraid that something might happen, and I was told by the doctor to say one wrong move, and you may not need a surgery again. You need a wheelchair permanently. So, well, fortunately enough, thank God that didn't happen, and that's when Paul Heyman. So I had another match. I wrestled the Canadian Wolfman. He was one of the early Eastern Championship guys, and that's when Paul Heyman decided to make me manager, and actually he gave me the name and told me how he wanted me to bring that character to life. So the rest I just kind of watched different films, and actually believe it or not, what influenced me a lot was that movie American Gigolo.
Yes.
Yeah, because I kind of I don't think I ever told anyone that. I kind of based my character on that. The guy with he opens his closet and he has a matching blazer for every shirt, for every tie, matching socks, matching shoes, that type of thing. Because that was his job to look his best, and so I kind of based the character off the movie American Gigolo. I never told this to anyone. It just popped in my head because I do remember trying to compare it to something.
That makes sense. You mentioned Todd Gordon. What were your interactions like with him at that stage, and can you provide any insight on his relationship, at least early on, with Paul Heyman?
Todd was always one of the boys and always cared, and he wanted to make sure that he loves the business. He loves professional wrestling, and with that, he always made sure that we had work, that we had fun. He did his best to find venues and for everybody to get paid, and he was a friend to us all, and I consider him a friend. I love Todd Gordon, and I respect the hell out of him.
Did you notice his relationship change with Paul Heyman, especially as time went on, or is that something that's somewhat overblown in the mythology of ECW?
Yeah, I mean, again, I sort of I have a habit of minding my own business, and I also have a habit with first believing that everything's a work. Therefore, I'm not sure as far as what was worked and what was real at that point, still to this day. But it ended up being whatever it ended up being, Extreme Championship Wrestling. And I always believe that Todd was, no matter what, a part of it. And to me, he is, and he forever will be.
So a lot of the fans still talk about your your victory over Mikey Whipwreck for the ECW TV title. How did that booking come about, and what were your thoughts on carrying that prestigious title at the time?
I thought it was great, and I was very pleasantly surprised when both Todd and Paul told me that that would happen because well, first of all, Mikey's awesome. I mean, he's always been a great friend. I love John Watson, Mikey Whipwreck, just a great, funny guy. Always was tremendous in the ring. I loved that character, and a lot could be done with it. I just wish that feud would have gone on for longer because of my character versus his, and especially him whooping my ass, and then me having to cheat to win, but he always gets retribution. The fans like it because apparently a lot of people pretty much on the shoot didn't like him because they thought that the character was really me, and it worked very well. I thought it was great. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it immensely because and it kind of made sense because Mikey somehow beat one of my men. The pit bull Gary Wolf, who was unbeatable. And then
who we've had on the podcast
for the title, and I beat Mike.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Wolf.
Yeah, we had.
Sorry, Gary Wolf. Did you say?
Yeah, we had him on the podcast. But go ahead with your recollection of that match.
Yeah.
With Mikey.
Oh, I enjoyed the hell out of working with Gary and Anthony, those guys, and we've been to Japan together and teamed up and even worked against each other. And in fact, I saw Gary last night. He's doing great. He looks great. I saw the Sandman too, which was awesome. And Angel Amoroso was there, and her daughter Christina, and there was a whole lot of great people. Angel Orsini, and James Mitchell. Just I love seeing these people because I love working with them. Working with the Pitbulls was awesome. Working with the Sandman was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, very memorable.
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. Yeah, but the whole thing with Whipwreck, I just wish it went on forever.
Any reason why it was curtailed, so to speak?
Yeah, because they had big plans for Mikey. He was extremely popular. He did the whole thing with the Public Enemy and then Mick Foley, and he against all odds again. He became a triple crown holder, and it worked. So, for obvious reasons, they separated us, and Mikey went on to become a huge success, and extremely deservingly so.
Yeah, for sure. Wanted to ask you about your 92 to 93 work with the WWF and how that came about, and especially one particular match on Superstars that Hannibal from the Hannibal TV was actually at in Ottawa, where you faced Ric Flair. Do you remember that match at all? That certainly was one of your very high profile exposures at the time.
Yeah, actually, I believe it was earlier. No, not earlier that night, but the night before, I worked Rick Martel, and we were actually in Quebec City. No, I'm sorry, it was Ottawa.
Ottawa, yeah.
I think it was Ottawa, or was it Quebec City? I don't, I'm really not sure, but it surprised me because when Martel came out, he was truly a heel, and people reacted towards him as a heel. But the next day, I wrestled Ric Flair, and unfortunately, whatever happened with the match, they edited the hell out of it because it did not go that way at all. It was completely edited. My favorite match with Ric Flair was I think it was 88 or 89 in WCW, where he just destroys me. And that's when he had the feud with Sting, and there were stipulations where Sting would even touch him before their final pay-per-view bout for the world title. He would lose his chance, and Flair was like taunting him by really, beating the hell out of me and put me in a figure four, wouldn't release it, broke my leg. That whole thing, that was more memorable than the World Wrestling Federation version of it. It was, and I remember it well. It was Ric Flair and he was managed by Kurt Hennig. But yeah, the match was completely edited, and if you watch it, it really doesn't make sense, and it's not one of those classic Ric Flair matches. Just some things happen during the match that again, no one's fault, and of course, I'm not going to fault Ric Flair for it, but I'm not going to fault myself either. It's just it was memorable because it is Flair, but it wasn't one of my favorite matches. No.
Gotcha. A fan wants to know, what was your experience teaming with Dean Malenko?
It was wonderful. It was fun. The only thing that you see, I was not allowed to wrestle. I was always told to not show skill. This way, the character would go over better. And the wrestlers that I managed were, well, of course, Malenko is brilliant, but still, they wanted to push the wrestlers to the point where they were bigger than life. And again, it's Malenko; he is bigger than life. But then again, whenever we teamed up, they, meaning Paul, and then they wouldn't allow me to go full force. So that I did not enjoy because I love wrestling, and I was that's what I was trained to do. But just being there with someone like me was awesome. And, I also teamed up with Bobby Duncan Jr. for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an odd combination, but it was a pleasure. But yeah, Dean Malenko, thumbs up.
Yeah, great technician. A fan on social media wanted to ask you about your match against Lex Luger in the 4th episode of Monday Night Raw, where he actually made his TV debut, and how that went.
Yeah. I think it was a main event on. That was right around that time, right before I needed that back surgery. So I went into that, and I remember being in a lot of pain, and it was just some old injuries that finally became pretty much unbearable. I couldn't really work out. I was not in great shape or anything like that. But, I was hoping that it would, kind of like ignore it; it'll go away, but it didn't. And I remember that with Luger, for Monday Night Raw. It was, and I believe that made main event Monday Night Raw. But of course, it was just a squash job for Luger because he did that. What was that narcissist gimmick? And
Narcissist.
great.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And it was, working with Luger was. I worked with him twice in the WWF at the time, and he was great. I mean, smooth and light as a feather, and just a very, very safe to work with, and especially for a powerful, man, that he was at the time.
So after a stint in Japan, you returned to ECW about 97 to 99, and you had a fairly memorable feud with the Blue Meanie. And I want to ask you about that first before I ask you about the origin of managing the Impact players. But if you could talk about your work with the Meanie, that would be great.
With a Meanie, I wish that lasted longer as well, because I think that could have been something that that they could have kept going with. And unfortunately, again, that got somehow lost in the shuffle because, again, Blue Meanie, a character that everybody loved, and at the time, he was very heavy and all that, and then of course maybe the opposite, the arrogant guy that wants to make sure he keeps in shape and all that, versus a big heavy guy, and getting my butt handed to me by the Blue Meanie was, got a great crowd reaction, and that's what I always liked, the crowd reaction. So I think if they let us go with that, we could have done really well over a longer period of time, because it was let's see, we really had only several matches, and that was it. And it's unfortunate because we could have taken that everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Great heat. A lot of fans still remember on commentary, Joey Styles would really put you over in a a unique sort of way by really emphasizing your name and talking about you. What was your relationship like with Joey, and do you know how that ongoing bit seemed to come about on ECW TV?
Oh, it was fun. I mean, we could feed off of one another, and Joey was awesome. The whole itching thing and all that. I thought it was great. It was always a pleasure to work with Joey. He was his timing was always great. Obviously, a hell of a announcer, commentator, personality. Call him. I mean, should I say all the above, right? And It was a super pleasure working with him. Again, I think that something more could have been done with that. It could have actually turned into an angle, because I think we had a great professional relationship and great chemistry with Joey Styles.
Yeah, certainly very memorable. A fan is talking about here how he watched you versus Jazz at Heatwave '99 and how much he loved that match. Can you talk about that particular match?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, they knew they wanted to groom Jazz, and they saw great potential in her, and I did as well. And I trained with her and Rodney quite a bit before that. We'd show up early to the venues, and we would train. And she was very nervous because I know that she wanted to do well. That she was extremely unsure in herself, or maybe that's the wrong way to put it. But I think she just was did not want to mess up because she saw an opportunity and wanted it. And she was always extremely quiet and very very correct behavior in and out of locker room. Wanted to learn, and she would kind of take everything in like a sponge. And, we trained together a lot, and some of the matches that we had before that pay-per-view match were really not good at all. Because I mean it was difficult. Like it wasn't gelling, and for some reason I knew that come pay-per-view time we were going to do great, and that entire thing that we did, all the spots and everything, that was a lot of fun, and everything turned out quite perfectly. Yeah, the finish was cool, with two chairs, the crotch and all that, and then finally the finisher on top of the chair. The timing was great, and of course we had a great referee and a good storyline. It went nowhere, but it took Jazz to another level, and I'm very very happy for her and for Rodney, both wonderful people, and credit to our industry.
For sure. A lot of fans remember you most from your
I think we.
sorry? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's your audio is breaking off, kind of freezing.
Sorry about that. Sometimes that occurs with StreamYard.
Yeah.
I'll start over. A lot of fans remember you most from your run with the Impact players and managing them, and are asking about Just Incredible and if you still maintain contact with him. But could you walk us through how you became involved in a manager capacity with them, and any of the highlights of your period of time with them?
Well, let's see. In the beginning, of course, I managed only PJ Credible, and we actually teamed a lot together, and we did a whole lot of house shows everywhere, and we would actually be a main event versus Tommy Dreamer and Mikey Whipwreck, and weapons, anything goes type matches, and that was great. I enjoyed that very much because it brought me into the ring doing what I like to do. Managing Credible was great. And then, of course, the Impact players, that was fantastic, but they did not need me. I was just a fifth wheel there. And, it was, I honestly didn't feel very comfortable at all. And, nothing against the guys, but look, they had Dawn Marie, and that is how they should have kept the team. Dawn Marie with the Impact players, let me move on, do something else. And that's it. I mean, it was it made absolutely no sense why I was a part of that faction, where it just didn't make any sense to me. For me, it was just going to work, earning a paycheck when the checks weren't bouncing, and being on the road. Other than that, it really wasn't anything that I signed up for.
So how did you get inserted in the faction then? It was just something that came together, or do you know why you were?
I guess it was Credible and I in the beginning, and then of course Lance came along, and they became the Impact players, which were I mean, they really were the Impact players. Like I said, they were super teamed together. I mean, they were again, they were the Impact players with Dawn Marie. So somehow I kind of just stay there, and I guess I was getting booked. So again, what am I going to do? Show up to work and do whatever I'm told. I mean, don't get me wrong. Being a part of the faction is an extreme honor. I just believe that I was unnecessary for that team.
Fair enough. You mentioned earlier your relationship with Paul Heyman and how instrumental he was to your career in a couple of aspects. Taking into account how things ended up with ECW, and especially the end when he was allegedly negotiating another TV deal and then ended up on Raw, et cetera, et cetera. What are your feelings on Paul in retrospect now, in terms of his stewardship of ECW across the continuum that he was there?
I believe that ECW was designed to fail in order for certain individuals like Paul and Tommy, Taz, and some other people to move on to what they truly were aiming for. So pretty much, hey, that's just how it goes in any business, especially show business, because people are going to look out for themselves. And I'm not even saying it in a disrespectful or a mean way. I'm just stating a fact. The hell with everyone else, because basically I believe that it was designed to fail, and certainly not by Todd Gordon. But certain individuals knew where they wanted to, and it was always it was always supported by the WWE, and you can tell because we had all these different stars that they were trying to market, and we were actually lucky enough to have guys like Doug Furnace and Phil Fawn, and of course, let's see, I think there was a relationship with WCW because we had Brian Pillman there, and I think they had a good relationship with the large, the two giants, meaning World Wrestling Federation and World Championship Wrestling, and I believe they were just simply designed to fail. And they knew that the ship was going to sink. They knew that they were going to save themselves, and they were going to be okay. And everyone else just, well, you drown, you drown. You swim up to the shore and make it to safety. Then so be it. And that's exactly what I think of it. And again, I'm not being facetious, mean, sarcastic. I'm just stating fact, and I will not apologize or change my mind because it's way too transparent. So, and it is what it is. Nothing but love to everyone else, but call a spade a spade.
Yeah, for sure. Wanted to know, just to switch gears for a sec before we go back to the WWE. You had a brief appearance in TNA in 2003. Why did that not turn into a longer run during those now well appreciated Asylum years?
Yeah, I was actually booked for a tryout, which is fine, and it was through Bill Barons, and New Jack was very instrumental. he wanted me there, and it was like, yeah, I spoke to Bill, and so Bill helped me get there. But once I got there, I guess it was beyond his control. They decided to put me in a tag match with some guy that I really didn't know who he was, and I wrestled Sonny Siaki and Mike Sanders. And the guy I teamed up with managed to get knocked out the first 2 seconds of the match, and then I got tagged in and finished the match. And so after that experience, I didn't really, I wasn't itching to go back because first of all, I was supposed to actually go and get a tryout, and even Paul Heyman, I spoke to him on the phone after that, and he was not impressed at all. He was actually kind of pissed. He said, you should have never done that. You should have told them to go fuck themselves, if I may say that. And that's exactly, because he's like, Jason, you should be, you should have a job and be, a character and not that. And I'm like, well, you live and learn. So it was one of those things. And actually, I was there, but it was a memorable night because it is when, that was actually when AJ Styles became the world champion, NWA world champion, by beating Jeff Jarrett. So, it was a very important show / TV taping. But for me, it really didn't do anything. And, again, I wasn't itching to go back. I did speak to Bill a couple of other times, and, supposed to come back and do something. I forgot, but, it all gets lost in the shuffle because, everybody and their mother who wanted to work for TNA at the time because I guess they felt it's that third big one or the second large one or which they lasted a hell of a lot longer than ECW did. I'll tell you that. I'm not even sure because I'm not sure how they were doing because I've not watched wrestling in probably about 20 years. So I don't really know what's going on. The most I watched was I was at a show last night after that signing and some independent show in Brooklyn. So the most I watched of professional wrestling was last night, but I've not followed it. I don't, I'm not even sure that I know who anyone is these days because, and again, that's not saying it out of disrespect. I just lost interest in watching modern day professional wrestling. I like wrestling the way it used to be, but that's living in the past. But so be it. That's what I do.
Well, you're not the only one. I believe Impact, they're still around, but not sure if they draw any sort of measurable numbers. You were a part of the ECW One Night Stand along with the Hardcore Homecoming shows that were a reaction to the fans continuing to express their love for ECW. I wanted to ask about your two-part question, your experience in those shows, and did you think that the WWE ECW was an attempt to, as many have speculated, was an attempt to kill off the ongoing fan support and chants in the arenas for ECW?
Yeah, to me, it just seems like it was an attempt to what inevitably happened is to flush it down the toilet, and that's exactly what happened to the WWE version of ECW, and that's it. I don't know. I mean, it's I knew that from day one, from that very pay-per-view, because of course they were going to give the fans what they wanted. They were going to give them a great show. both times. But, ultimately, they were simply going to kill it off and do their own thing because if you notice, back in the day, everybody used to crap on ECW. Oh, extremely crappy wrestling, this and that. All they do is go through tables and hardcore because they can't wrestle and so on and so forth. And then every other company copied it. And they even took it to more of an extreme that we did. Therefore, they felt, look, we're just going to follow up and copy that, do what they did, and kill them off. And that's exactly what they did. Left a lot of people without work. And that's simply it.
When you were at One Night Stand, was there any indication that you could go further with the company, or was it just in your mind strictly a one-off?
Oh, it was the vibes were obvious that it wasn't going to go any further, but of course we would have liked it to have gone further, and I think that it would have been an awesome brand, and it was a brand for a little while. It wasn't awesome, but it was a brand for a little while, and then it got killed off. Like I said, it was an attempt to flush it down the toilet, and that's exactly what they did. So, I guess it's just it's a dog eat dog, and the bigger dog is going to eat the smaller one. So that's just the way it is.
But ultimately, we're talking about. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, we were talking about what?
I was just going to say, that notwithstanding, flushing it down the toilet, etc. Here we are talking about it X number of decades later with just as many, if not more, hardcore fans of a company that hasn't been around for decades. So I would say in the long run, they may have wanted to destroy the ECW legacy, but certainly failed.
No, the fan base, no way. I mean, I'm even shocked because I started. This is like my second convention. I've been away from professional wrestling for about 10 or 12 years. I've done absolutely nothing. I became a hermit for a little while, but it amazes me how even the younger generation of fans that weren't even alive back then crazy about the original ECW. I mean, they really are. It just amaze me. I'll go to these conventions and there's obviously a lot of people that remember us and people that I remember. They're as fans, but now their children are coming up to us. They know who we are. So that's pretty amazing. So no, the fan base, they will never kill that off.
Amen. A fan wants to know, Jason, have you ever had an uncooperative opponent in the ring that you had to shoot on, so to speak?
A few times, as far as like little shitty indies, that think they're a company, and they'll bring someone that does not cooperate because they're either untrained or they're just retards or on drugs. So, and I mean, it's nothing, nothing memorable. You kind of just no, nothing serious. Just take care of it and move on. Because professionals are always professionals. So in other words, I have more than my share of pleasant experiences in the ring, working with professionals. And as far as the few bad apples, they rot in. They're not important.
Absolutely. I wanted to mention that I'm starting a new podcast this coming Friday. Check the Hannibal TV for details with ECW original, the Kingpin, Angel Medina, who wanted to shout out to you and ask you a question that I've asked him and some of the other folks that were involved in the infamous ECW in Canada show that I actually worked security for in 2013 called Hardcore Road Trip. And you're on the poster and you cut some promos to come up and wrestle in a tournament. And you never made it to the show. And just because I'm a historical nerd, wanted to ask you the question about what happened there with that particular booking.
Oh, I had some trouble with with a proper documentation because I've lost some of my documents through the years, I guess, through moving or what have you. And I needed that in order to renew my passport. And remember that that's actually after 9/11 when everything changed. You needed a lot more than what you needed back then, and I did not have that at the moment. I could not renew my passport, and I wasn't about to leave the United States and not be able to come back, to back home. So I was hoping that I would be able to take care of that issue before needing to travel, but I could not, and I was heartbroken that I couldn't make it because I absolutely love Canada and the people up there, and it's actually, if I had a choice, the second place where I wanted to live, it would be Canada. I love Canada. I've been there quite a few times, and I know a lot of people. A lot of my countrymen and women live up in Canada. And, they love it. So, I wanted to go back to Canada, and B, I really didn't want to do this hardcore road trip, and I was heartbroken that I couldn't. And it was, strictly just a matter of not being able to renew my passport at the time, and all that's been fixed for quite a while.
Well, there you go. You just answered a question that I've had for a decade or so. It was the first show was really, really good. Actually, the second one not so much. We're quickly burning through our hour here, but one fan wants to know: do you have any memories of the heat between Sabu and Taz backstage?
Yeah, I mean, it was there, and it was between them, and I think it. How can I put it? Because I think Sabu was the more reasonable, because Sabu did what he did, and as far as his style, and it was extremely popular. And I'm not sure if Taz felt threatened by it, and he really shouldn't have, because Taz is Taz. He does what he does, and it was extremely popular and positive with the fans. I mean, after all, he was the world champion. He was the top dog. So the heat was there for a little while, and I think it was this professional rivalry, which shouldn't have been. But then again, it's between them. I kind of I just mind my own business. It really doesn't concern me. But all in all, they had some incredible matches, memorable and just unforgettable. So it was a win-win.
And finally, our last fan question of the night is Ryan wants to know if you still have any of those memorable suits from the early 90s that you talked about earlier a bit.
I wore one. I wore one last night. The black one.
Right on.
Yeah, I wore it last night, and it fits. And it fits, and it looks brand new. So
well, you've certainly
30 years old, I'm able to the same size pants.
I was going to say you've certainly had maintained a commitment to physical fitness throughout the years, so that's a testament to yourself.
Yeah,
Jason, before sorry, go ahead.
Pardon? No, I mean, that's a part of having a longevity. You got to keep, you got to press on, and I don't, I know that years go by, but we can try to fight the aging process as much as we can. So, staying fit is definitely a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, we've reached the end of our hour, but wanted to know, I know you're active now on the convention circuit. What do you have coming up that you'd like to mention for the fans, and also where can you be found on social media so that the fans could contact you?
No, you can help me out. Definitely. What is it? Icons?
Icons of Wrestling this Saturday at the old ECW Arena.
Okay, you heard that, right?
The following weekend, you will be at New Jersey Horror signing. Yeah. And let me see. And your Facebook would be basically your Facebook. And it's the one that has your live on it.
It's the one that has my live on it.
Excellent. Well, we'll encourage all the fans to check those out, especially those in the area. Do you have any final comments for the as you touched on earlier, the fans that still are so loyal to ECW and remember your work fondly?
Oh, I mean, I'm so grateful, beyond grateful. And, I'm actually very, very happy that I'm back in the loop again, because I've almost forgotten how much fun it is and what a good, positive feeling it is to experience those good vibes. And I'm just I'm hoping it will continue for a little bit longer, maybe a lot longer. So let's we'll do what we can, and I'm very grateful. I really am humbled, grateful, and very fortunate.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thank you very much for appearing on the Great North Wrestling podcast, and the viewers of Hannibal TV are no doubt going to keep tabs on what you're doing, and we'd love to have you back again in the future for a more expansive discussion. But for now, thanks again.
Yes, thank you so much.
Take care. Well, fans, that's it for another edition of the Great North Wrestling podcast. Before I go, just wanted to mention that within the next few weeks, we're going to have major announcements as to the talent booked for the May 6th Great North Wrestling 15th anniversary event at the Earl Armstrong Arena in Ottawa, Ontario, along with ticket information. But you're going to be very pleased at some of the names we're bringing in and some of the surprises we have. Also, as I mentioned earlier, on Friday, catch the debut episode of the new podcast, Shooting from the Hip, that I am doing with ECW original Angel Medina. And that's Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we hope you check it out. The first episode is going to be a discussion on Angel's interactions with Dirty Dutch Mantel, who's been in the news the past week in terms of Angel's tenure in Puerto Rico and TNA. Until then, thanks everyone for watching and have a great week.